All right, lots to get through tonight. Joining me now for the latest, the Daily Telegraph's national editor, James Morrow, of course, at Sky News host, and our Northern Australia correspondent, our Darwin Bureau Chief, Matt Cunningham. Gentlemen, welcome. I won't go through the litany of issues, James, that I started there in relation to border protection. More calamity today about those foreign detainees and a lack of clarity from the New South Wales Attorney General right through to the Minister there, Claire O'Neill. But the government's bleeding on this, isn't it?
Well, they've got a huge problem here, Peta. I mean, let's put this in the context of more recent political history here in this country. You know, Labor governments have so often come unstuck with their management of borders, with detainees, with refugees, with people exactly like the 93 people who have been released here with or without ankle monitors, and the other 300 or 340 people who could also be released from detention, because fundamentally, you know, they don't believe in borders. I just think that, you know, you have to look at the way they act. They think that on some level, borders are bad. National sovereignty is just something that's a bit icky. And if people are here, they're here, and you can't really do anything about it. And, you know, it is not in line with community expectations. It's not in line with reason to have these people who are, for whatever reason, not be able to be sent back to their country. And I think there's some real issues that Australia and other countries are going to have to look at very soon about, you know, the way we manage some of these international conventions. But beyond that, though, that they don't know what's going on with these people or who they are, and that they've tried to manage this more as a media issue rather than as law enforcement and sovereignty issue, I think is absolutely disgraceful, Peta.
I'll come back to that issue a little bit later on, but you made a point there about international conventions. I am aware there's talk in South Africa that they are going to withdraw from the Refugee Convention for some of the issues that you just raised there, James. But Matt, I have to say, we learned this afternoon from Penny Wong the talk of 860-odd Palestinians being granted visas to come to Australia. Now, of course, you want to hope they're security checked, but the two clowns, the department heads that do the checking of anyone coming to Australia, are the same two ministers, Giles and O'Neill. Can't even tell us if they've got ankle bracelets or not, or they don't know where the pedophiles are or where the murderers are. I mean, it doesn't inspire a lot of confidence, does it?
Yeah, I don't think I can articulate how poorly they've handled this issue better than you did in your introduction. I mean, they really are all over the shop, and they have been for more than a week now, and it really is doing the government serious damage. I think they need to sit down, they need to do their homework, and they need to make sure they're across all of the detail of this issue, because that's what Australians are expecting at the moment. I do agree with James's point at some level. This is always a difficult issue for Labor, and the reason it's a difficult issue for them often is because internally they don't necessarily agree on a hardline approach. You know, we know that Andrew Giles, who's the Immigration Minister, you know, back in 2015, he was arguing at the Labor conference against boat turnbacks. You know, for the coalition, this is easy. They're all on the one page. They believe that we need to be hard on this issue, but Labor internally, we know, are quite often divided when it comes to border protection.
Divided and soft, Matt, you got it in one. James, the RBA rate hikes, we know across the board, are being felt, particularly with families. We find today that a third of businesses are considering laying off workers before Christmas. That's a massive blow. We've got 1.2 million people out there saying they've had to delay medical appointments and they're delaying filling prescriptions because of rising costs. New figures from The Economist says that Australia is now behind Britain, Germany, Canada, US, France and others when it comes to beating inflation. And we see that polling, the coalition ahead of Labor. I think the electorate are now questioning not just the PM on national security, but also on the handling of the economy.
Well, that's right, Peta. And I think that it's a shame that a lot of Australians are looking forward to a really grim Christmas this year. You know, we've got not only that runaway inflation, but also we've seen figures showing that Australian household income went back 5.1% to practically GFC levels in the last financial year. People are really doing it tough, and this government here isn't making it any easier. You know, they like to talk a big game about we're targeting a subsidy here or we're doing that there, but So much of what they're doing is inflationary, and they're pumping more pain into this system, making more interest rates more likely. And these have to do with three things. They have to do with out-of-control government spending that's still not, they say it's targeted, but it's still money in the economy. It's the renewable energy transition, which is far too fast and which is causing power bills and everything else to go through the roof. And, it's also about this immigration issue where you're talking about 500,000, 600,000, 700,000 people a year. That is contributing about a third of that inflation, which is causing the RBA to have to look at more interest rate rises, which are going to drive more of these layoffs. It's a terrible, vicious cycle that we're getting into, and very tragic, I'm afraid, for a lot of people coming into Christmas.
I don't need to tell anyone who gets on a plane these statistics out today, but government figures show that about a third of Qantas, Jetstar and Virgin flights in Australia, these are domestic flights, were late in the month of October. And the big headline, Matt, was that Qantas was the least reliable domestic airline in the country. We're paying through the nose for fares at the moment. Any chance you think that Qantas can rebuild its brand?
Well, it's struggling to at the moment, and it's because, one, that on-time performance, and two, the exorbitant costs of airfares. I would say that it is one of the biggest issues in the city where I live at the moment. Probably behind crime, it is the biggest issue that people in Darwin are dealing with at the moment. People here are paying up to $1,000 each way for a flight to Melbourne or Sydney. There are people in Darwin at the moment who are saying, we can't afford to go home and see our loved ones for Christmas because the cost is just too exorbitant. Something needs to be done about it. And when they then see airlines like Qantas return such massive profits, they just feel like they're getting ripped off blind. The Qantas brand up here at the moment, the NT in Qantas stands for the Northern Territory, but certainly people in the Northern Territory do not feel like Qantas is on their side at the moment.
I tell you, on those numbers, Matt, that's about the cost of a flight to London to get out of Darwin down to Melbourne. I mean, that's just that's unacceptable. Let's go, James, if we can, just quickly. Queensland Public Servants is set, I couldn't believe this one, I read it today, are set to get a one-off cost of living payment come Christmas. The poor old taxpayers won't be getting that relief. They're paying this to the tune of $350 million.
Peter, all I can say is roll on election day in Queensland. I mean, come on, that's just unacceptable. Think about what we've just talked about. A third of companies, private companies, looking at layoffs, and Queensland public sector workers are going to get a bonus. It's beyond a joke. I'm sorry. It's not appropriate. They should hand the money back and show a little bit of the sympathy for the people that they regulate and govern.
And tax. James Morrow. Matt Cunningham, thank you.